Hey, Diana, did you know that TV advertising still works for law firms?
Mark, that's the dumbest thing you've ever said.
Ladies and gentlemen, jurists and just curious, welcome to the Successful Barrister podcast. Here you'll learn about marketing, management, and life skills for lawyers that probably won't get you disbarred. Hosted by Marc Whitehead, a seasoned lawyer who remembers when fax machines were cutting edge, and Diana Berry, attorney, COO, and the brains behind the scenes. Together, they are the legal world's most dynamic duo since statutes met regulations. So if you're looking to build a practice, not a prison, you're in the right place. Welcome to the Successful Barrister, where legal legends are made.
And welcome to the Successful Barrister podcast, the podcast for lawyers and law firm leaders about marketing, management, and life skills that probably won't get you disbarred. I am your host, Marc Whitehead, alongside my co-host, my number one, Diana Berry. Hey, Diana, what's going on?
I'm still not used to that one, Mark, but I am quickly getting there.
You're number one in my book. That's all I can say.
Why, thank you, sir.
So, what's going on?
Not much. Just I'm astonished you have found a marketing podcast again.
Oh, another one. Well, now this one is actually good, and this is different. So what we're going to talk about today is sort of my journey through time and what I have learned about advertising, marketing our law firm on television. We market a lot of different ways. We have a lot of different marketing channels, as I call them. Channel doesn't mean a TV channel. That means some sort of marketing vertical, either digital advertising, PPCs, LSAs, newsletters. Any of those are what I would refer to as a marketing channel. Well, TV is a particular marketing channel with subchannels like ABC, CBS, so forth and so forth. And I have advertised in a variety of ways on television, but off and on since the 1990s. And I have managed to screw it up every way possible.
Oh.
Yes. So we're going to talk about some of the things I've learned along the way of me screwing up our TV advertising. And we were off TV for a good 4 or 5 years. Something along those lines. I think we had not been on TV since the pandemic, pre-pandemic. And probably that may not have been the best decision in the world, but we survived. We do fine. But we are now back on TV. So I thought this might be a good time to rehash some of the things that Mark has learned over the last 30 some odd years about television advertising, and hopefully some of this will be of use to our listeners who might be thinking about it, who might be doing it and trying to figure out how to make it work. Maybe we'll convince a few people it's not a good idea for them. So we will see how this goes. But there's this, I don't call it a myth. I would call it an idea before its time, that TV advertising is really a dying medium and is going away sort of the way that Yellow Pages died off. And I would submit to you that is just dead wrong. I think people watch more TV now than they ever have. It's so fragmented, and you watch it in different ways. And a lot of times you don't watch it live. You're watching bits and pieces of television on social media. This morning, I was watching Stephen Colbert's monologue, but I wasn't watching Stephen Colbert's show, which comes on, late night. I was watching it on my iPhone, at breakfast this morning, just getting little clips. So the way people consume TV, the way people consume video media generally, is a lot different than it was 10, 20, 30 years ago. And so we kind of have to adapt to that and figure out ways to make it work. And quite frankly, sometimes we may need to adjust our expectation. Diana, I know you watch TV constantly.
Actually, I don't.
I was saying that with my eyes rolling. Like, you don't
Okay,
even
good.
own a TV, do you?
I do. It is actually.
Do you know where the remote is?
Usually not, but
Yeah, I
I
didn't
would
think
say
so.
it's on my husband, somewhere near my husband, because it's actually a bone of contention. I don't watch TV.
Yes.
I'd much rather be reading and or just de-stressing another way.
Do you watch Netflix or things like that?
If I do, it's generally streaming, and so I think that that's the differentiation that as a non-marketing person I had to make, is that, and when we talk TV, there's cable. I know you'll get into this later, but there's traditional cable TV like that I grew up with, right? And then there's other ways to be on quote unquote TV.
Right.
Okay. And that's why you say that, TV isn't dead, because there's so many different ways that you've decided to do this.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's still powerful, and it done right. It can generate name recognition. It can generate trust signals. Obviously done wrong, you can totally trash it and burn your money, you might as well throw your money out the window.
And I think it's a lot like, you made this comment about billboards in one of our prior podcasts. It's part of a whole bigger strategy, right? TV on its own, probably not as successful as having, also you need, especially nowadays, you have to have a strong website to back that up.
It is part of the overall flywheel. It is a piece of the flywheel. It is not the end-all, be-all. And when I talk flywheel, I'm talking about the marketing flywheel, not the overall strategy of the firm. But it is a piece of marketing, and it can augment and supplement other things that you're already doing. If you have the big enough budget, it can be the centerpiece of your marketing campaign. Now, I will tell you that in our world, I don't view television as the centerpiece of our marketing campaign. It is ancillary to other things we do. It is complementary to other things that we do. It is not even close to being the biggest piece of our budget.
Whereas probably, personal injury firms, they may have that as a bigger piece of their flywheel, if you will.
Right. I mean, in our neck of the woods in Houston, Texas, Jim Adler is the 800-pound gorilla when it comes to television advertising. I know he spends millions of dollars per month.
Oh, wow.
On television. And he used to be the big dog, but he's now got competition. And that's the thing is, it's not, television advertising is the ultimate free market capitalist society. It is a bid system. And if somebody wants to come in and outbid Adler for the most commercials, they're free to do so, because the TV station will certainly take your money. So he has competition now that he did not have 10, 20 years ago. So it is interesting to see how this is going to play out. We don't compete in that market, the multi-million-dollar market. We do what I would call more niche marketing within television advertising. We'll get in and talk about that and how we distinguish ourselves and how we do it a little bit differently. But what I would say, television is great. There's a statistic out there that says that some insanely high percentage of people are visual learners. Mm-hmm. And television is a visual medium, and it gives you all sorts of great options to create, distinct visual presentations that are memorable, that people can remember, but it takes repetition. Nobody's going to see a TV ad one time and do anything with it or remember it. But if they see it 5 times, if they see it 10 times, if they see it 20 times, it will start to sink into, it will start chiseling those grooves into those people's brains to where you become synonymous with whatever message it is that you're trying to get out there. But the question is, how do you get that repetition without spending the millions and millions of dollars?
Yeah, because obviously the things that you mentioned, the 10, 20 times, that I hear money when you say that.
Yes, so money.
We're going to talk about that today, right? A little bit more about the cost and how you measure your ROI with TV.
Right. So a couple of points I'll get out in the first segment, and then when we come back from break, we'll kind of get in more of the nuts and bolts of it. But, TV does 2 things, and it can do both things at the same time, depending on how you structure your campaign. Number one, it's lead generation. But number 2 is building the brand, building your name ID. So I believe that a good well-structured commercial for a lawyer should be able to do both. So I'll give you the extremes. So let's look at, you see an advertisement on TV for Coca-Cola. Mm-hmm. That is pure brand building. They're simply getting the name Coca-Cola out there. They're not telling you to go to Kroger's and buy it at Kroger's because here's a 10% coupon. You know, they're not giving you a 1-800 number to call to order, you know, Coca-Cola directly. They're not doing any direct, what we would call direct response marketing. They're doing brand building. They're just putting their name out there. They're building a brand. And you can do that as a law firm. And I have seen people do that as a law firm. My friend Chrissy Castle, who I just saw in Dallas, she sponsors a PBS program. If you ever watch PBS, you know at the end this program's sponsored by.
Okay.
So she sponsors a PBS program. Well, that is pure brand building because if you've ever watched PBS, it's not like, here, call Chrissy Castle at 1-800, get a lawyer or something. It's just the name of her firm. This program is sponsored by the Castle Law Firm. I don't know how she brands it, but by Chrissy Castle, attorney at law, or whatever. That's pure brand building. She's not trying to do direct response. And she's in a very niche market. She's trying to get people that are higher end in the community because this is maybe a higher end program that's more wealthy, educated people are going to watch. That's what she's trying to do. She's trying to build a brand. As opposed to, is that a word? Opposed. Oh, see, I'm getting, the great vowel shift. Anybody who studied English understands what that meant. When you're putting, say, an ad out, call me now. If you've been injured, call me now. 1-800, I've been injured.
Well, I mean, even our ads, right? The ones you just did,
right.
It has a call to action.
It's call to action. That's basically the definition of a direct response ad. It has a call to action. However, you can combine both into one message. So, for example, our message is Marc Whitehead, board certified, disability law, that's the brand building part. You get the brand out in the first 10 seconds of the commercial, and then it's the call to action. If you've been denied, call our number, which is 999-5000, by the way. So it has two parts to it. The first part is brand building. The second part is the call to action, call the number. So you can combine those two things together if you do it well and craft the message well, and you really only have, either 15 seconds to do it or 30 seconds to do it or 60 seconds to do it. And we'll talk about some of that. But here's the first thing, and here's where I screwed this up royally. When I first started doing this, do not do any television unless you have a coordinated intake strategy. Your intake department your intake process, your intake system, whatever it is, must be capable of handling the calls immediately upon getting the calls. I will say this is where I screwed up in the 90s and maybe the early 2000s is I did not have a well-oiled intake machine, and I was advertising on television, and half of our calls from the ads probably never got answered or answered correctly or properly screened. Big fail on my part. And this was, again, before I got wise and understood that the most important part of a law firm is its intake department and its intake process. Mm-hmm. So do not ever spend $1 on marketing until you have your intake processes locked down. Otherwise, you are going to waste money, and a lot of it. So anyway, I will get off my soapbox on the intake side. So we're going to take a quick break, but when we get back, we're going to go into some of the marketing tactics that I do, some of the lessons that I have learned, and some of the things where I have really screwed up that I'm going to encourage you not to do.
This podcast is sponsored by Marc Whitehead Associates, a national disability benefits law firm. Marc Whitehead runs a firm of over 60 dedicated people whose mission is to make a difference in the lives of our injured and disabled clients. Marc represents disabled claimants in Social Security disability, private disability insurance, and veterans disability claims in all 50 states. Marc Whitehead is double board certified in both Social Security disability law and personal injury trial law. Marc has litigated disability cases in over 40 states and counting and can help your clients too. Stop throwing your phone calls away. Call Marc Whitehead at 701-VIP-LEAD. That's 701-VIP-LEAD. Or visit our website at disabilitydenials.com. Referral fees are paid in all jurisdictions where it is permitted. Refer us your disability cases today and know that your clients will be in good hands.
And we're back. All right. You ready to roll?
I'm excited, Mark.
Okay. What are you excited about?
Learning.
Learning?
Yeah.
I know. Every time we do a marketing podcast, you just sit there and look at me half the time like...
Well, I'm just soaking it all up.
Come on. You know you love this stuff.
Yeah, I do. I really do.
I know, she says.
Somewhat convincingly.
So not convincingly at all. So this is why we make such a great team. I love marketing and you love operations, and we do our things.
But I do understand the importance of marketing, and especially for a lot of our listeners who probably are considering TV and whether or not to go there. So I think this is going to be very topical for a lot of our listeners.
Yes. So the first thing, we kind of talked about, what do you want to do, brand building or lead generation? I think I would lean on the side of lead generation unless you have a massive, massive marketing budget, which I would assume most of us don't. I do not. You really want some direct response. So you really want a call to action, which means you have to have a very quick, simple message. This is what I do. This is why you want to call me. This is what differentiates me from anybody else. And this is the type of client I'm looking for. And call me now, call me now, call me now. So great. But where do you run this stuff? So you have choices. And I think I have probably done almost everything. And I've tried almost everything. So we'll go through the choices real quick. First one is local broadcast. This is your basically your ABC, your CBS, your NBC, your Fox. Probably your town has independents. I forgot the CW. I know we have some independent stations in Houston that are broadcast. Those are your traditional stations that you would market on. And I would say they still are, for most people, your best bet, going to be your best response. The problem is you're throwing a really, really wide net, and they can be rather expensive. For example, we're currently running on ABC, and just to run a 15-second spot on the daytime rotator, in other words, through the 9 to 5 daytime rotation, I think the last time I looked, it's $212.50 to run a 15-second spot. You double that for a 30-second spot. So what is that? That's $425 to run a 30-second spot on daytime TV. That's $425 that you will burn up in literally 30 seconds.
Wow.
Okay. Now, ABC is one of the more expensive stations. And the reason they are more expensive is because they have a certain amount of daytime inventory. And it's almost like a bid system. How much are you willing to pay? Well, how much are you willing to pay? How much are you willing to pay? So it's priced based on availability. Versus if you go over to, say, Fox daytime. Fox daytime is much, much cheaper because, they just don't have the same viewership. They don't have the juicy demographics that people are looking for. And their cost is probably less than half that for a 30-second spot. But it's basically based on a bid system. People think it's based on ratings. It's not, although you should evaluate your TV buy based on ratings. But it's really based more on an availability in the bid system. The other place that you could advertise locally is local cable channels. So your cable channels, your ESPNs, your CNNs, Fox News, MSNBC, Lifetime, all of those, your basic cable channels. And the great thing about basic cable is you can segment a city. Now, I haven't done this lately, but I know in Houston, Texas, there are 13 cable zones on the local cable advertising. So I can pick Houston Northwest. I can pick Houston Central. I can pick Houston North. I can pick Houston Northwest. They're all divided out into geographic areas. So if you have more of a regional local practice, say if my office is up in the Woodlands, which is 30 miles north of Houston, there's a cable zone up there that I could advertise on cable television just in that little zone. I can pick out that zone. Relatively inexpensive relative to broadcast TV, because in broadcast TV, you're buying all of the 5-county region, you know. The problem in my experience, and this is what has been relayed to me by marketers out there, is that cable just doesn't seem to have the pull, doesn't have the response rate. For some reason, people are not as focused on cable TV, and therefore its response rate tends to be relatively poor relative to broadcast TV. I've never quite understood the psychology, because what's the difference if I'm watching CNN versus I'm watching Days of Our Lives? Is Days of Our Lives still on? Okay, I know they cancel a lot of my good soap operas from back in the day, but apparently broadcast still pulls better than local cable. So therefore, we're currently not running on cable. I'm not saying we would never run on cable, but right now we don't. Then there's national cable. You can make national cable buys if you have a national practice, and we do. And I have actually run on national cable. Funny story, we were running on the History Channel. So my commercial was running all over the country. Well, it turns out the History Channel is also picked up by the overseas military services. And my cousin, who was in the Air Force, was stationed in Tokyo at the moment, saw my commercial in Tokyo and called me up like, Mark, you opened up an office in Tokyo? He's not the brightest guy, but anyway, so that is possible. And you can, on a cost per eyeball, you know, you can gauge these things on how many eyeballs are reaching. It's relatively cheap. Again, I will say that it really wasn't as effective as on a dollar spent, dollar back in. It wasn't as effective as a local broadcast buy. But I know a lot of mass tort lawyers use national cable quite a bit. If you get on national cable, you will see quite a bit of mass tort commercials going on because it works for that genre. The last one, what's called OTT, are streaming advertisements. Now, this can be quite targeted. Like, in theory, I could run a veterans disability commercial only to households who have veterans in them. There's that data available. So that we're talking about here advertising on things like Hulu and Netflix and all of the stuff, you know, because a lot of people use the lower cost version, which allows for advertisements. And my understanding is that you can't skip those advertisements. You can't fast forward through them. You have to watch them if you're watching the lower tier level of these television programmings. Again, what I have heard from people is they don't tend to be terribly effective because people are not watching Netflix. They're kind of almost offended by the fact that they have to sift through commercials, so they'll go get up and make popcorn or whatever. But it is a very effective way to target. It actually happens to be quite expensive per eyeball. So there's some good and bad in that. We've never done it, but it is out there. And it might be the wave of the future. I'm just not really sure. But those are the ways that you can pick where you're going to run your TV spots at. I will say we've always had the most success, quite frankly, on daytime broadcast television. You know, because that's people just kind of have that on and it just stays on. You go to my house ABC is on all day. It may not be watched, but my wife turns on Good Morning America in the morning, and it just stays on that channel, and all day it stays there, and she's in and out. But the TV rarely goes off. And a lot of households are like that, and they're still like that. They just pick their favorite broadcast channel, and it stays on all day. So.
Yep. One of the things that I remember one of the speakers at PILMA talking about, I would say the name of the firm, but I'm not sure that I'm correct, so I would be wrong. But I think they were based out of Florida, and she said that when she was much smaller, I believe it was the Ward law firm. But okay, good. I am getting that correct, at least from the everyone in the room. So, when they were a much smaller firm, she was able to get, I think, TV spots on some of the smaller, more independent channels. Mm-hmm. And in that smaller, so if you got a smaller marketing budget, don't exclude that. But she did say that was an independent, and she was able to get an exclusive, I think, at that time. Maybe when she got a little bit bigger, she was able to get, negotiate an exclusive there, which is not an option at the bigger stations. Right. Another tip that she shared with us when we were at PILMA was that if you're, for example, if you aren't a Cuban or a station focused on the Cubano, community, make sure you actually find a speaker who is Cuban. Don't, try to intermix, because that's something very special and unique to that community. So just be very careful when you do that very specific marketing.
Yeah. I will say that back in the aughts, there was a TV station in Houston called The Tube, and it specialized in running old reruns. That's all it did all day long, was old reruns. Gunsmoke, Mannix, Rockford Files, all of those 70s shows. And that's all it ran all day long. So it tended to have an older demographic, which is what we're looking for. And they had a deal for $5,000 a month. They would run 50 commercials a day.
Wow.
A day. Do the math. We were paying like $5 a commercial. Now that shows you that not a whole lot of people are watching that television station because they're selling it so cheap. But it actually worked because we inundated that station. Now that station no longer exists, so we probably ran it out of business. but don't overlook those types of deals out there. The repetition that we got on that station was insane. So at least the three people who were watching it sure as hell knew who the hell we were. So.
Well, and niche marketing on TV too. Yeah. So moving on, Mark, to now you've found where to put your ad. What's your next decision you're going to make?
Well, what length of commercials are you running? Typically, what you're going to see are 15-second commercials, which are great for high-frequency branding. You can get your phone number out. Can't say much else in 15 seconds, but you can get it out. Then you have the 30-second spot, which is sort of the industry standards. It's enough time to tell your story, plus give a call to action. Then you have 60-second commercials, which are less common, although they are very common in the mass tort world. So the reason they're common in the mass tort world is the mass tort world, you have to educate the client that there's even a case out there. Like, hey, did you know that this drug has been found to cause cancer? Do you have cancer? And you have to have a longer explanation. So in the mass tort world, they tend to focus on 60-second commercials because they have to do a bit of education in the commercial. Whereas in, say, the PI world or the disability world, people know they were in a car wreck. They got that, or they know they've been denied disability. They got it. They kind of have it figured out. So there's less education that needs to go on. Then the long form, the 30-minute infomercial. We have done that. As a matter of fact, I produced not one, but two different infomercials in my life and have run them. I ran one on local TV. I ran one on national cable. The problem with infomercials is they're hard to place because they're 30 minutes. So you're usually buying overnights. You can't get midday, which is prime time for our purposes. You can't get an infomercial placed midday. You can't get it placed in prime time. It's hard to get it placed early morning. It's usually an overnight thing. So it's less effective that way. But it got some result. What we're currently doing now is a mix of 30-second and 15-second commercials. So we're on a TV show midday. We'll run one 30-second commercial and maybe 2 or 3 15-second commercials within the program. So you get one sort of anchor commercial and then several 15 seconds interspersed to give them a quick boost and a reminder of what they saw. That is a common strategy, particularly when you have limited budget.
Do you repurpose your ads on social media?
Not specifically, no.
Oh, okay.
I do know when we shot these commercials, we did take some time to put me in more casual clothes and do a one-on-one interview, since we already the camera set up, and we did shoot some purpose-driven social media video, but the actual commercials themselves, I'm not saying you can't. I'm just saying we haven't.
And when you have these ads, Mark, are you using the same, I'm going to say the 713-228-8888 number, or what are you doing?
Well, you came into the next one, which is the next question here is, do you use a vanity phone number or do you use a call tracking phone number? And let me explain the difference. And I've done both. So if you're running a campaign where you really need to do some A/B testing and figure out which station is working better for you, well, how do you know where that call came from? Did they come from ABC, CBS, NBC, whatever? Well, you can ask the client. I will tell you that clients are typically extremely poor historians about where they saw the ad. They don't know. They're not even sure they called you because they saw a TV ad. They could come up. I saw a billboard. I was like, I saw you on a billboard. Like, I don't even run billboards. We know I ain't right. So the way to solve this conundrum is to use what's called call tracking numbers. You can go to a service like Call Tracking Metrics or CallRail, and you buy phone numbers. And you want to buy reasonably good phone numbers, numbers that have repeaters, like ending in 2277 or something like that. You can get those repeater numbers, for around $1,000. You physically buy the number. So when we were running in the teens back in around 15, 16, we were running on all networks, all broadcasts. So we had a separate call tracking number for each network. We had one for Fox, ABC, CBS, NBC. And so when that call came into us, we could tell based on the call tracking number which station they called from, which stations were pulling. The downside is you're not getting any branding of your phone number. Your phone number is not becoming synonymous with your name because you're using different numbers on different channels. And the numbers tend to not be as memorable because unless you have a massive budget, it's to buy a number that is really a repeater, a really good, memorable number, it costs more money.
Especially now.
And it's just gotten worse. I know a friend in Washington, D.C. called me up and asked me, he goes, it was local area code number 4444444, so all fours. And a vendor wanted to sell him that number for a TV campaign, and they wanted $250,000 for that number. Yeah, very expensive. We have now gone to a branded phone number. So we use the same phone number on every commercial. So to try to brand it a little bit more. We use 999-5000, which I purchased for, I think, about $6,000. So I now own that number, and we're going to brand that number. So we have gone away from call tracking numbers, and we've gone to a branded phone number. There are the letter phone numbers like 1-800-LAWYER, 1-800-GET-HELP, or things like that. And in the old days with rotary dial phones, that had the letters on the rotary or even on a push button, I think that had some merit. I think nowadays with cell phones, most cell phones don't have the letters associated with the numbers like they used to.
Yeah, they still do.
You think so?
Oh, I know so.
I don't.
Because...
Okay. I think that has kind of run its course. So I just prefer numbers. I'm not going to go pay a ton of money for 1-800-GET-HELP or 1-800-DISABILITY or something like that. I'm using a local area code. In Houston, it's 713. So our local number, 713-900-5 or 999-5000. Easy. I can spit it out real quickly. Boom. And we actually say the number verbally in the commercial. So it's at the bottom of the commercial the whole time. And this is another tip. I think your number should be at the bottom of your commercial the entire length of the commercial, whether it's 15 or 30 or 60. A lot of creative people want to throw the number on at the very end after the message.
Yeah.
I don't agree with that philosophy at all. I insist that my number is on the screen the entire time. And I also insist that I verbally say the number within the script, which does limit you. Like, I can't go run my commercials up in Dallas. I would need to reshoot them and get a Dallas phone number. I guess in theory I could run a Houston phone number up in Dallas, but that would be kind of silly, I think. I do see a lawyer here in Houston that's putting a San Antonio phone number on his Houston billboards, and for the life of me, I think that's the dumbest thing I've ever seen. I'm like, who the hell let you do that? But I don't know. He's proud of his phone number. All right. Next topic.
Yep. So you've got your ad, Mark. How do you go about putting it on TV?
Okay. How do you get the commercial on the television?
Yeah, that's a better question.
So here's the thing. You can do your own buying strategy. You can be your own buyer. You simply call the advertising department at the television station, and we have done this, and negotiate your own deal. And if you're doing a low budget, and you know you want to be like niching on a particular, a particular show, this is doable. So at one point, we only wanted to run on the 6 o'clock news. So we did our own buying strategy. We did our own buy because we were running an extremely limited budget. We were only looking for one specific program. Our goal was to sort of be the lawyer on that program. And so we did a direct buy. We did not hire an agency because agencies do charge you a fee to do this work for you. So in our opinion, because we were doing such a little niche buy, it did not merit hiring an agency. If you're going to do a more general buy, a bigger buy, agencies typically work like this. They will either charge you a flat fee, which you can negotiate on a monthly basis to handle all of your buying for you, or they can charge you a percentage of the buy. Usually it's about 15% of the buy. Currently, we're doing a flat fee arrangement with our vendor. It sort of depends on your goal and what you want to do. But here's why an agency is good. They argue, and there is some merit to this, that they can probably negotiate better rates because they see what's going on. They have a bigger picture. Your ads will frequently get bumped, and you'll have to get make goods. And one of the jobs of the agency is to monitor that situation and make sure, number one, that the television station is running what they say they're running, and making sure that if you do get bumped, the bump is documented and you get an equivalent make good. Obviously, if you're buying a spot on daytime TV and you get bumped and they say, oh, we'll run your commercial at 3 o'clock in the morning, that's not an equivalent make good. Mm-hmm. So a lot of the job of the advertising agency is to make sure that you get what you paid for. Because shockingly, TV stations will screw you left and right. If breaking news happens and they bump all the commercials because they're going full news, which happens, has happened many times. If somebody outbids you for the spot and they simply can't fit your spot in, you can get bumped. There are times when there are technical difficulties and they run the spot and somehow the spot didn't run technically correct and, the bars come up or something, or the commercial gets cut short or another commercial jumps in. That it has to run the full length of time, and if it doesn't run the full length of time correctly, you are entitled to a make good. But somebody has to monitor this stuff. So that's what a good advertising agency should do. They should be buying you time at the cheapest rate that they can negotiate and making sure you get what you pay for. And basically that takes all the pain and anguish off of you and puts it on them. So we currently do use an agency, but we haven't always. But those are your choices of how to get out. Next topic, budget. This is the big one, because how much are you going to spend to break through the clutter? So I think it depends on what your goals are again. I go back to the time that we only wanted to run on the 6 o'clock news. This was an experiment that we chose. We did not have the budget to dominate a particular station or to really break through the clutter. However, you can break through the clutter if you try to dominate, say, a particular program. In our case, it was the 6 o'clock news. If you want to dominate, what's a daytime program that goes on now? Kelly Clarkson. Okay. If for some reason Kelly Clarkson's demographic hits where you want to hit, and you don't have a big budget, you can just focus on that one program. So whatever her daily numbers are, let's say there's 50,000 people a day in Houston, Texas, that are watching Kelly Clarkson. I have no idea if that's even in the ballpark or what the real numbers are. But I can just keep pounding the Kelly Clarkson show, and I will now own those 50,000 loyal Kelly Clarkson viewers who watch her show every day. And I'm focusing my ad buy strictly there. The other thing you can do is you can tighten up the length of time that you run. So right now, we're not running 5 days a week on our daytime rotator. We're only running Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday because most of your calls, we all know this, most of your calls are going to come earlier in the week. And then people tend to tail off at the end of the week because they're doing other things. So why run TV commercials on Thursday and Friday? So that's a way we can focus our budget and get our repetition up earlier in the week by concentrating on Monday. Monday's our biggest day. Then we tail off a little bit on Tuesday. Then we tail off a little bit more on Wednesday. And then we probably are not running on Thursday and Friday at all. It's another way to expand your budget. Depends on where you're at. Running on daytime TV in Beaumont, Texas, in that DMA, you know, your budget can be a lot smaller. I'm going to imagine you could run $5,000 a week in Beaumont, Texas, and probably do pretty well. You know, small market. You try to run $5,000 a week in Houston, Texas, it's going to be a lot harder.
So how long do you typically run your TV campaign, Mark, for you to assess whether or not it's working for you?
It takes a while because you have to get momentum. I would say that you need at least 6 good months before I would expect for it to really get rolling because it's all about repetition.
So 6 months, and at the end of 6 months, where would you like your ROI to be? I
mean, in theory, you would like your ROI to be somewhere in the neighborhood of 3 to 5 times what you spent. And it kind of depends, again, it depends on what you're doing. If you're doing a branded campaign, your ROI is going to be a lot lower because you're not really doing a call to action. And so attribution becomes harder. If you're doing a purely call to action type campaign, call me now, call me now, call me now, and you expect this campaign to actually pay for itself and make money, you know, after 6 months, you would hope to see about a 3 to 5 to 1 return on your investment. You're not going to see that month 1, month 2, month 3, because it does take time to get rolling. And depending on your market, it might be more than 6 months. It might be month 8, it might be month 9, and so forth. So really sort of depends on, I think, the size of your market. But you can't just flip it on and all of a sudden it's going to work gangbusters. It will take time to start rolling.
Yep. And so we've talked a lot about, you know, when you put your ads, and we've talked about landing pages or unique call tracking numbers. But ultimately, to close out this segment, Mark, your TV ads, as we started this episode, they really enhance the rest of your marketing strategy.
Right. So I call it the halo effect. When you're advertising on TV, understand that the benefit that you're getting is not going to all be directly attributable to, hey, I got a call directly from television. What we notice when we are on television for any extended period of time is that our other marketing channels start to work a little better. I start getting more referrals from attorneys. I start getting more referrals from clients. I start getting more leads from, say, our pay-per-click or our organic SEO work, because it's called multi-touch attribution. People have to see you multiple times in multiple ways before they pick you. So let's say they go to and land on Google and hit the Google 3-pack, and Google gives them 3 choices when they say disability lawyer Houston, and there's 3 choices there. They have to pick one of those 3. Well, if they've heard my name before through other marketing methods, if they've seen me on television, they're more likely to click on me than any one of the other 2 people in the 3-pack, just because of the name recognition. So it's called the halo effect. How does your TV advertising, in addition to the direct response, how does it make your other advertising work a little better? And it's hard to measure. It really is hard to measure. It's sort of a guessing game. You just sort of have to look at the big picture and say, did my overall ROI on my entire marketing campaign, did it significantly improve?
Yeah, because it doesn't matter if you have a call to action ad on TV. That person's still going to Google Marc Whitehead Associates disability attorneys or whatever the case may be. And so then when they call, they're like, how'd you find us? Oh, the website. Mm-hmm. So you still may not really be getting the ad, the benefit, your ROI may not say TV. So,
one of the things you look at is your total ROI. Like I spent, say, $1 million last year on marketing. What was the total ROI? Is it 7-to-1? Is it 8-to-1? Is it 9-to-1? Is it getting better? Is it getting worse? So you kind of look at it in its totality, and understand that all of these things start to work together. It's its own little mini flywheel within the marketing department.
All right, Marc. And so in our closing segment, you're going to share your parting thoughts on
Parting
TV?
thoughts, few tips, things to think about. Things not to do.
Yeah.
How not to waste money.
This is Marc Whitehead, lawyer, entrepreneur, and business coach. Thanks for listening to the Successful Barrister podcast. If we've stirred your juices, hit me up with an email at marc@marcwhitehead.com. Remember, Marc is spelled with a C. And get on the Successful Barrister newsletter mailing list. Even better, let's set up a call. I'd love to talk to you about working together, talk shop, or just shooting the breeze.
And we're back. All right. So there's a saying that I've heard multiple times, and I actually Googled it to see who said it the first time, and it said John Wanamaker, and I have no idea who John Wanamaker is, but he said, half the money I spend on advertising is wasted. The trouble is I don't know which half. This is quintessential TV marketing. Half of what you do is probably wasted, but you just can't tell which half. When we talk about it, what I say is TV is not a silver bullet. It is simply a system amplifier. It amplifies the other things that you're already doing. Unless you're the Jim Adler of the world spending $1 million a month, I think of TV as simply it's amplifying our other marketing channels. It is not the end all and be all on its own. Now that's in our budget, which, our budget, depending on what time of the year you're asking me, is probably going to be somewhere between $20,000 and $50,000 a month. So significant money, but, not Jim Adler type money, not even close. So it's important that you spend that money wisely, pick the right programming, pick the right time slots, get the right marketing message, make sure you compress your repetition into this, a smaller set of programming so you can get the repetition, do Monday through Wednesday instead of Monday through Friday, so you can compress it and get the repetition that you need. But you have to have a unique message too. One of the advantages that we have is that we're not advertising for car wrecks. Every ad on television is talking about car wrecks, or now truck wrecks. Now they've gone to truck wrecks. And how you distinguish yourself there from everybody else, I don't really know. I mean, that is amazing to me. In our world, obviously, we're looking for disability claims. So we have the advantage of distinguishing ourselves. We are different. So I don't have to compete with Jim Adler. I know, quite frankly, there's only about one or two other people in the Houston market that advertises for disability, and we're all on about the same par in terms of budget, from what I can tell. And you can get these spending reports, so you can see what your competitors are doing. But it's all about getting good creative, getting the frequency you need, doing the follow-up, and having a great screening criteria and a great intake team. That's how it equals success. And if you're not sure about it, start small, test. That's what we did. We did a 3-month campaign just on the 6 o'clock news. Wasn't that expensive. Cost us, I think at the time, it cost us about $5,000 a month to, have pretty good visibility on the 6 p.m. news. It was on ABC. I love ABC for some reason. So ABC seems to work well in the disability world. I don't know why. I guess it may have to do with the programming. It hits our demographic better. But, it has tended to work. So it's not the best ad that necessarily wins. It's the best strategy. So you always have to think about that and think about the strategy. I think we have a pretty good marketing partner right now in Rue Advertising, ROUX. They're out of New Orleans. They were recommended to us by a good friend of ours. And so far, so good. We will see. It's still new in the game. But we've been able to brainstorm and bounce ideas and, and talk about it, and come up with the strategy that we are currently running, which is more of a compressed daytime schedule, a lot of 15s supplemented by 30s to get the repetition in. And we're starting to see traction. It's not perfect yet. It's not where we want it to be yet, but we're starting to see the traction. Thoughts? You're just sitting to look at me like this is the marketing campaign, and I'm just going to listen to what Marc says all day.
No, I think the thing that hit home for me was just the fact that it is just a cog in the whole marketing strategy, including having a great intake team to screen your leads. I think that to me is the way you don't waste money, because your ROI might increase, but you're only going to know that if you have a great intake team. Right.
And that's why it's key. You need to know your numbers, and you need a baseline. Obviously we have 999 5,000 is our call tracking number. So if somebody dials that number, we know where you came from. We know you saw it on television. So we can directly attribute that. The other things we do is that when a case comes in, we assign it a value. So we may or may not be correct on that one specific case, but over the long run, we are fairly good about knowing what a case is worth on the front end. So I know if I signed up, if I value a case at $3,000 and I signed up 5 cases this month from the TV, I know the TV made me $15,000 this week. And what did I spend this week? I spent, $3,000, $4,000, $5,000, $6,000, whatever the number is. That's how much I spent on TV. So I know my ROI. So it's important that lawyers know the value of the cases that they're signing up. And of course, it takes us 18 months to get paid on a case. In 18 months, that value may or may not pan out. But, over time, the law of large numbers, we pretty much hit it. We know the average value of most cases. So we're pretty good at that. But you got to know your numbers, and you got to know your attribution, and you need to pay attention to your other marketing channels to see if you can see the halo effect from your television advertising. So Diana, you want to be in my next TV commercial?
No, thank you.
Come on.
Mark, you are the star, and I have no interest in
I
taking
have
that away
watched
from
you so much on YouTube. Here, our podcast videos.
Oh, gosh.
I see you talking all the time. You have a very photogenic presence.
Why, thank you, but Mark, no amount of flattery is going to get me
Come
on
on,
TV campaign.
come on.
But thank you so much, Mark, for sharing your experience. I've learned a lot. I know just getting to listen to it, so I hope it's very topical for our listeners as well.
So once this, like I said, we launched this campaign about 3 months ago. We may revisit this topic and go over our results. I think we need to give it 6 or 9 months.
All right.
So in 6 or 9 months, we'll come back and revisit this topic, and we will go through some hard numbers with you about how this has actually worked. All right. Anything else you want to add? I know you're so interested in this topic.
I really am, but I want to thank our listeners for listening to the Successful Barrister podcast.
Oh, so you're trying to get my outro list going, aren't you? You're trying to get out of here. I see what you're trying to do. Okay, fine. I can take a hint. So we want to thank everybody for listening to the Successful Barrister podcast, where legal legends are made. I'm Mark.
And I'm Diana.
And together we're the dynamic duo of law. So remember to rate and review us wherever you get your podcast. And if you've enjoyed this podcast, hit the forward button on your phone and forward the podcast to your friends. Text it to them, email it to them, send it up in a smoke signal, however you do it. Tell a friend. Also, visit successfulbarrister.com, and remember to visit our sponsor, Marc Whitehead Associates, a national disability law firm, at disabilitydenials.com. And with that, we're out of here.
Bye.